April 25th, 2012.
Wow.
That's pretty bad. So good. Hey, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm so happy to have you. Today we are tackling the pantry. While our pantry is serving us well, it's been about a year since we completed it, moved all of our food in there, and it hasn't been deep cleaned since. So it's needing a little bit of extra love, a little bit of deep clean, a little bit of reorganization. We have function, but it could be optimized. So that's the goal today. Let's clear out whatever doesn't need to be there, that's just kind of clutter, things we haven't eaten, things that maybe are even expired. I'm gonna be real, there's probably gonna be some expired items in there. We try our best not to waste food, but unfortunately it does still happen at times. So I'm gonna clear any of that out and then just set my sights on how can I make the space as functional as possible. I love our pantry. I'm so thankful that we were able to do this project together. Brandon and I took this project on, and it was my vision and his handyman craftsman work that was able to get it to come together and look the way that it does. It is a gorgeous portion of our home. Prior to this, it was an odd little closet situation, and it had a closet rod in there so that you could theoretically, I guess, hang some clothing. I think it was intended to be sort of like an entryway closet, and we have just changed our home around since we've owned it, and we don't need this space to function that way. We have added a mudroom to our home, and that has plenty of storage for all of our items that we need for going in and out of the home. This space is serving us much better as a pantry and storage for our food. We do have wonderful cabinet space within our kitchen. We have really, I think, more cabinet space than we need, but it was all upper and lower cabinets, and while that is fine to store food in, and we did it that way for years, this is a little more functional. I love the aesthetic that it adds to our home. We were able to use a lot of materials that we already had on hand. I will show you when we get into the video, but the shelves are actually made out of flooring that came out of Brandon's uncle's house. We've used this flooring in a couple of projects around our home. Very wonderful flooring. They had a little bit of more leak in their home, so they chose to replace their flooring, and we were able to salvage what had not been damaged by the leak and put it to good use in multiple areas of our home. When we were designing this pantry, I really was passionate about glass doors. It was something that I just felt I had to have for this space. I didn't want the space to feel closed in or smaller. We have a good sized kitchen, and I wanted to maintain that wide open feel, and having those glass doors where you could see into the pantry and see that depth really made me feel that I was going to be able to maintain those sight lines and that feeling. So I was super passionate about the glass doors. It took us a while to find them. We got creative with those as well. The glass doors are actually bifold doors, and when we purchased them, I did a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, and ultimately figured out that we could just remove the existing hardware that the doors were going to come with, and instead of having a bifold door, we could create these two slim doors that we have on the pantry with the pull handles that open outward. So that is what we did. We bought the bifold doors, we took the original hardware off, we put on our own hardware, we stained them to match our home, and now we have the two slim glass doors I was always looking for. We could have purchased some of these glass doors as separate doors like this. They were far more expensive than the bifold doors. So we were able to save some money by purchasing them as a set of bifolds, and I think they look wonderful. It just adds a little bit of elegance to the space that I'm really appreciative of. I love how this pantry turned out. It is everything that I had hoped and dreamed of. I'll take you through the functionality of it as we go. Hopefully it's going to be the beautiful space that I know it to be when we are done getting it cleaned up today. So come along with me as we clear the clutter in the pantry and make this space as functional as I know it can be. Before we get started on that pantry, let's take a minute to make a delicious drink to enjoy while we work. So this is really quite a simple and delicious drink. It's just the freeze-dried strawberries that you saw, as well as this Simply Lemonade, strawberry lemonade flavor. And I just mix them and enjoy. So good. That'll be wonderful to sip on while we tackle this project. So here's a before look of our pantry. We track our kids' height on the wall here. There's Hank, he's getting so big. Yeah, we just write right on the wall. It's our forever home. So we do as we please in that aspect. So here's the before. There's lots of organization that's already in place. And like I said, lots of it is functioning for us, but we just have some areas that are getting a little bit disheveled. For example, this space here, we have magnetic lights in this space, but 2 of the 3 are dead right now. Dead. Dead. So we're working with what we've got, which is not a lot of functional light, but I do have one more that's that will turn on. So we'll stick that in there and that'll help things out a little bit, I think. All right, so this space here is getting a little bit disheveled. This basket in particular, I have no idea what's down at the bottom of that. I am confident that there are things that we are not eating, will not be eating. Things like this jar are empty. We have had that last little bit of pistachios for so long now. I think that we just need to put them out in a dish so they get eaten and we can move on. So this shelf in particular is not super functional. This shelf is commonly used by my husband, and he refuses to put the lids back on these containers. So that's a battle we're working on. I appreciate the functionality here on this shelf. I've had comments before, such as, how do you get to the things in the back? And ultimately I just move what I'm not using out of the way. And a lot of these jars are able to be stacked on top of each other. So I just stack a couple and slide out whatever I need from the back. I'm sure that if I had a different size space that I could maybe avoid that, but I am thankful for the space that I do have. Let's get that light back on. I am thankful for the space that I do have. It is beautiful, and I'm not at all upset about having to move some of the jars out of the way. This space is relatively functional. It's mainly our pasta shelf. This corner is not ideal, I guess. We'll see what kind of improvements we can make there. We've got a bread shelf. We've got canned goods. These 2 shelving-ish units are things that I'm really proud of. They're actually something that was being sold with the closet equipment, and we went ahead and used them in this space. So we keep our fruits on this side and some of our heartier vegetables that can sit out on this side, like squash and onions. We also put potatoes around here. I know you're not supposed to keep your onions and your potatoes together, but I do have a little clear container in there where I store onions when we have them, so we're not keeping our onions and potatoes together. And then down on the bottom, we've just chosen to use this space to store some extra cans, some overflow cans when we have them, and some beverages in little storage containers. And then moving back up here, we have some extras. We have cake decorating supplies over in the corner, other dog treats. Over here we have the kids' medicine, general medicine, and dog medicine. And up top we just have our extras. That stuff is not commonly accessed, so it is up pretty high and I need to get a stool whenever I need to get up there. But it's just kind of like our refill stuff that I can later decant into the jars that we keep at eye level that are easy to reach. Okay, so that's an overview of the space as it is right now. I also just have to be honest about this. Look at that. That's some of the mess I'm talking about. So that's the space as it is as we're getting started, and let's get to it. Let's clear that clutter. When we first created the pantry, I put in a large order with IKEA and I purchased all of the jars that have clasping lids that you see in this video. I'll try to link what I can below. The prices are really good through IKEA. I have loved these jars. They've all held up wonderfully. We haven't had any casualties with them, so I highly recommend them. Okay, it is 100% cleaned out. From this distance, it looks great. It looks just like I'm ready to put everything back in. But if you get up close, we've got food crumbs all over the place on every single shelf. Some are worse than others. And so we just need a little wipe down. We need to wipe down all of the shelving in here, and then we need to wipe down the containers before they go back in because all of the jars are rather dusty. At this point, the kitchen is just covered in stuff. I've got stuff all over the floor that the dogs aren't gonna mess with. I have stuff all over the peninsula, I think is the technical name for it. It's not actually an island. All over there has canned stuff. Over here is full of stuff. Food is everywhere in this kitchen. Let's get this place cleaned up and let's get all of these things back in here. Once you see it all out like this, it kind of makes me feel like, how did it ever all fit in this space? But it did. It's deceiving, but there is a lot in here. Let's get things cleaned up. It is all clean and it smells wonderful. I was using my Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day scent, multi-surface, everyday cleaner. Removes dirt, freshens surfaces, perfect for this space. So it is nice and clean, it smells good. Now I need to make some decisions about what I'm putting back in. The dogs are currently having a little wrestling match, so the background noise that you hear is them. I don't expect that there's going to be a ton of things that I'm gonna end up decluttering out of this space, so I think I'm gonna start off with just putting the things that I know we're definitely keeping back in. It is 7:17, so I am quickly running out of time before my family is due to be home, and this is a catastrophe. So having them arrive home with things looking like this and things everywhere like this when they need to eat because they're just finishing soccer practice is not going to be ideal. So I'm just going to get started with putting back the items that I know we're definitely keeping. I might quickly glance through them just to be sure there's nothing I want to get rid of. And that way I'm going to be left with just a small pile of things. So in the event that I don't get it all done before my family arrives home, there won't be a ton left to tackle. And that's a wrap on today's video about clearing the clutter out of the pantry. At this point, I am pooped. It is 8:50. I grossly underestimated the amount of time that this project was going to take. As you saw, my family came home. I would say, honestly, they came home probably about halfway through the project. And so that slowed things down a little bit, but ultimately I knew at that point I was in the thick of things and the project still had to get done. So my husband jumped in and helped me with a couple of things and got the kids fed and showered and off to bed. So I'm gonna go up and say goodnight to them now, but I am very pleased with how the pantry turned out. There are still a few things that I'm working out in my mind, deciding how I would like to accommodate those things in the pantry, but for now, things are definitely more functional. The functionality has been returned to this space. Like I said, there was a good amount still there prior to cleaning it out today, but taking a couple of moments to really fine-tune some things and just go through some items that needed to be gone through. We built this pantry, like I said, about a year ago. I have no idea how that bag of banana nut muffin mix made it into the pantry, because that expired in 2012, 10 years ago. I have zero explanation for that. I don't know. I don't know how it can have moved from cupboards to pantry and not have gotten caught until now, but that is what happened. Here we are. It's gone at this point. It is living in the trash can, where it will leave our home for good in a matter of a day or so. I do feel better. I feel like this space is clean. It is functional. I'm going to give you one final tour of how everything turned out. Thank you so much for joining me on this project, for sticking along even though things took longer than expected. I hope that you enjoyed this. Hope you got some motivation out of this to tackle a spot in your home that you've been avoiding. The amount of food crumbs that I found as I was cleaning things out today, it kind of amazes me what can happen in just a year. So it feels really good to know that all of that has been cleared out. I was also finding some construction debris, which sounds interesting. Why would that be in our food? But on the other side of the pantry is where our mudroom is. And so when that was being constructed, we live in a log cabin, and therefore the interior walls are also the exterior walls. And so when framing was being done to get that room into the shape that it is in now, just some sawdust and sorts of things were able to get through the cracks in the logs, and that is some of what I was finding today. So I'm very relieved to have that done, have it behind me. It is a work night for me. It's a Wednesday night, so it is now almost 9 o'clock. I'm going to finish up my dinner-ish, whatever it may be, and then I'm gonna get a shower and head to bed. Because like I said, this project took longer than expected, but it was a good use of time. It is done, it is clean, it is tidied. We have gotten rid of very expired food, and the space is more functional. So time well spent, though longer than anticipated. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. Bye. Final tour of the decluttered space. Up at the top, I was able to get rid of a couple of containers. I was able to put the sugar, not all of it, but some of it into its glass container, and some rice. You saw me do that. Not too much changed on this shelf, or even this shelf. A couple things left the others basket, as well as the cake decorating basket. I just took everything out of each of those baskets and cleaned it. All of the glassware, the outside of it has been wiped. We were getting some dust, so shelves are clean, glassware is clean. This shelf is the one that underwent the biggest transformation. And overall, the functionality of it has remained the same, but it's just been polished. And some of the items that were there have been put into baskets in a different way. And then this kind of extra basket here has been toned down a little bit. I'm not loving the freeze-dried strawberries on top like that, but they were the last thing that I had to put back in this pantry, and I just had no more brain power to think of a better location for them. So that's where they are. This shelf remained very much the same. Glassware has been cleaned up. Our bread shelf is in good shape. All of our canned goods are organized, and our drinks down below. I will say this is not the only place that we store dry goods in our home. We do also have one cabinet right over here. This lower cabinet has crackers, cereals, and quick grab snacks for the kids. So if you are wondering where things like that are in our home, that is where. And then of course we have the refrigerator where we store items that need refrigeration. So this is the final outcome. This is how everything turned out. I'm feeling really good about it. I'm also feeling really good about heading to bed soon.